One child to rule them all? This week we watched Willow. You're watching the VHS Files. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're talking about Willow from 1988, directed by Ron Howard.
I think it's a film that, you know, if you watched it when you were a youngster, you could watch it again now, and it gives you that kind of warm feeling of familiarity.
I'm Josh, your host. I'm joined by Eric and Jason, as always. Since Willow is kind of in the zeitgeist right now, you got the TV show on Disney+. We decided to go back and watch the movie because it's been a while for most of us, I think. Just want to say thank you so much for everybody who's been watching. Thank you for subscribing, commenting, liking, all of that good stuff. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Doing great, man.
Ready to talk some 80s fantasy.
You're the one who's always big into wanting to do the fantasy movies, right, Eric? You kind of have a thing for fantasy movies, I would say, right?
Sure, yeah. I do love the 80s fantasy. I could certainly do more.
And Jason, where do you fall on the fantasy movies? Like, I know you're always talking about Beastmaster and whatnot. We've talked about Conan on the show before. So, are you a fan of the 80s fantasy movies?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, Beastmaster, childhood favorite. Even this was I watched many times, but even the ones that weren't so big in the theaters, like this was, like Crawl, Labyrinth, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, the fantasy films have always been fun, so this was definitely a fun one as a child.
And frankly, I like fantasy. You know, I think the biggest gamer, so to speak, in this group.
You're the only gamer in this.
Yeah, you're the only gamer in the group.
A lot of great fantasy, video games, obviously, going all the way back to Zelda and
Final Fantasy,
sure. Just finished playing the new God of War game. Lots of great fantasy. Always fun to have magic and monsters and, swashbuckling and...
Well, you got plenty of magic and monsters in Willow, so let's go ahead and get into our discussion about it. Willow released in 1988. Mr. Eric, will you please fire up the flux capacitor and take us back to 1988?
Well, Josh, it was pretty rad to be a kid in 1988. You'd get up on a Saturday morning and watch cartoons like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, RoboCop, and even a Police Academy cartoon.
Yes, I remember that. It was great.
Very short-lived, man, but I do remember that. Wow, that's crazy. I forgot all about it.
You'd strap on your LA gear and maybe grab your real Ghostbusters action figures and hop in your mom's Ford Taurus station wagon. Crank up the Kids Incorporated tape you got for Christmas and head to the theater for movies like The Land Before Time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Mac and Me, and Puss in Boots, starring Christopher Walken.
And a very clever cat. Christopher Walken and Jason Connery star in Puss in Boots.
I don't even know about that.
I didn't even know about that. What the hell is that?
I didn't remember it either, but it is a thing. Microsoft Office was released in 1988. Actually, I don't know if you guys did this. I took a Microsoft Office class in high school, actually.
You did, huh?
You guys know I don't like to brag, but I excelled.
I was waiting for it.
The concept of global warming earned national attention for the first time in 1988 when James Hansen testified to the U.S. Senate. Kind of sad that 35 years later, we still haven't found a solution, but we're definitely getting warmer.
Ooh, I like it. That's a good one.
Jim Abbott, a one-handed pitcher, wins the 58th James E. Sullivan Award, given to the most outstanding amateur athlete in the U.S. in 1988. You guys hear about the time the doctor was performing surgery on a patient with one hand?
No, but I'm sure you're going to tell me about it.
Well, the nurse said that if he used both, it would be easier.
I better use my strong hand.
Anyway, finally, do you guys ever recall seeing a TV ad for the National Enquirer? I don't, but apparently there was one in 1988. Hit it, Josh.
Bruce Willis's pregnant wife denies having a shotgun wedding. Enquire within.
Inquire within.
The way that you want it. Inquire within.
Book exclusive. Lana Turner's daughter reveals why she killed Mom's lover.
Inquire within.
Why is Michael Jackson talking monkey talk?
18 million people. Read us for a tip or a quiz.
We were obsessed with Michael Jackson and his monkey in the 80s, I tell you.
Yeah, they were.
Wow, you would think that was like a highly regarded magazine, yeah?
I remember checking out at the grocery store, and they always had it there. And you always look, and they had the one about the wolf boy. A kid, he was born with fur all over his body, which that was true, but he wasn't a wolf. He was just had some kind of thing where his hair grew out of every pore in his body.
You suffer from that ailment, Jason? Is that?
I do. I shave this daily just to see. So.
Well, thanks so much for taking us back in time, Eric. And let's get into a little bit of the box office here for Willow. May of 1988, Willow comes out. This movie has a budget of $35 million, ends up doing a box office of $137.6 million. This movie was a juggernaut.
I'm the juggernaut, bitch!
And coming from someone like George Lucas, who was the executive producer, he also wrote the story. Let's just be honest, guys. This is Lucas's version of Lord of the Rings, right?
Oh, God, yeah. Definitely.
He had this story basically started about even before Star Wars. It was
Willow's sort of been in my mind for about 15 years.
well, let's talk about the parallels here between Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, let's
and
do it.
Willow. I mean, first of all, Willow was one of, if not the first American film to shoot in New Zealand. Is that correct?
The toughest part of the shooting schedule took the cast and crew to Queenstown, New Zealand, a 30-hour flight from London. Filming continued in this mountainous area famous for skiing for 4 long weeks.
So that is an interesting production connection.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have a group of little folk that live in a little folk town that go on an adventure.
There's one particular item that will, quote unquote, rule over all evil.
They must deliver it somewhere
Yeah.
to something, keep it from the evil thing.
There's a magic lady in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of parallels. I mean, even the ending feels a lot like the end of Return of the King when they're seeing Frodo off back to the Shire and everything.
You also have the two. You have basically the blueprint for the Saruman Gandalf fight with the two sorceresses.
A fight that's pretty comedic in Willow, I have to say.
Oh yeah, dude. I hadn't watched this in a while, and I laughed my ass off last night watching it. That was pretty funny. There's some parts of this movie that made me laugh that I forgot about.
Excuse me, are we having a party?
Definitely when I watched it last night, in that part where you see them walking across the log, across the ravine, all together, and I was just like, man, this is like Lord of the Rings or almost Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs right there. I was waiting for him. I was literally in my head going, hi ho, hi ho, as I walked across that log. That's all you see.
One thing I found kind of funny as far as the production of this movie and this movie in general, aside from the Lord of the Rings comparisons, big movie, like we just said, 137 million at the box office. This movie currently sits with a 53% from the audience on Rotten Tomatoes, which I kind of thought was crazy. The audience, it sits with a 79%. But the critics apparently don't care for this movie too much.
It does feel kind of forgotten. Despite the fact that there's a Disney Plus show about it that's out. Before the announcement of that, I felt like it was kind of a forgotten property.
Well, that's the other thing that I think is really shocking. You've got a $137 million movie here that there was never a sequel made for. You think that's the opportunity they would jump on that cash grab, oh, this thing made some money. We got to get every little, squeeze every little bit of life we can out of it. And this thing's set for 30 years. I mean, with nothing.
I think after this came out, some other fantasy movies kind of bombed. I think that really took the wind out of its sails.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to talk about. You're talking about when this movie come out, when George Lucas was trying to get it made, it was turned down by a lot of studios because of movies like Krull, Labyrinth, Dragon Slayer, they were not received well. So nobody wanted to put their hands on it. And that's what I was mentioning earlier. And then here we are nowadays, and we look back at movies like Legend and Labyrinth, as masterpieces in our childhood, and people even talk about how great they are. But back then, they thought they were garbage.
Also worth mentioning, there's, I guess, like a trilogy in book form written by Chris Claremont and George Lucas. There's Shadow Moon, Shadow Dawn, and Shadow Star, I guess. And it was a book series that follows Elora growing up, basically. She grows up and you get to see her adventures as a grown-ass lady.
I do remember picking up like issues of the Willow comic book.
Yeah, there was a Marvel comic, but
did anybody watch the new show?
No,
I haven't watched it either. I was waiting till we did our episode to actually sit down and watch the show.
I haven't watched this movie in probably 20 years.
I hadn't either, and I felt like a little kid again watching this thing.
That was my exact thing too. I was like, man, I haven't watched Willow in forever, and I don't remember. It was the show that was coming out that kind of sparked my curiosity and wanting to do it for the podcast. But I was a little hesitant to watch the movie whenever we were going to put it on, so we could start, taking notes and whatnot.
Absolutely, under no condition whatsoever.
And when I turned it on, I had a blast watching this thing again. I forgot how much I loved it. And that kind of harkens back to when I was a kid. We'll get into that here in a minute. I do want to touch on the fact that this is not directed by George Lucas. It is directed by Ron Howard, famous for The Andy Griffith Show, Happy Days. And before this movie, he had directed a handful of movies: Grand Theft Auto, Night Shift, Splash, Cocoon, and a movie called Gung Ho, which I've never heard of. And then Willow came down the line. Now, I think we have a little bit of a poltergeist situation here where you've got a producer and a director who really directed the movie. There was a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff I was watching where Ron Howard was in a roundabout way, just kind of like feeling like he was taking the back seat on a few things.
I used to joke with George and say, some days I don't feel like I'm the director of this movie. I feel like I'm vice president in charge of cinematic affairs for Lucasfilm.
I can imagine it was probably a tough space to work in, especially for someone who didn't have much of a filmography at this point as a director.
A George Lucas that you can turn to on the set, well, that's an unbelievable luxury, and one that I really tried to take advantage of.
I'm sure that was definitely a plus, but I can also see where it could have been daunting on Ron Howard to have to deal with that situation.
Before that, he had been directed by, well, I guess a little while, but American Graffiti.
Right.
So he knew Lucas from that and was already sort of had Lucas above him from that and got the job from Lucas. So obviously Lucas is the man.
But it's also that thing where, Ron Howard shoots this scene and he's like, dude, we nailed it. And then he looks out of the corner of his eye and you see George Lucas going,
yeah.
Maybe if we do this.
Start from the beginning again.
You don't want to do the whole thing?
Not really, because, but you still got plenty of dancing, and we can start the music anywhere because it's the same.
Okay.
I wonder if there's like a halfway point that they could start.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just do the whole thing then.
Yeah,
okay.
You can see George Lucas when he looks at him, he holds up his Star Wars figures like money going,
right.
What are you talking about? Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. And he picks up like a Millennium Falcon over here. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't listen to me.
He like pulls his coat open and there's a lightsaber.
Yeah.
In the holster. And he goes, okay.
Yeah, you whatever you say, Lucas, you got this. Lucas. So.
George shot first. But with all the trials and tribulations that Ron Howard had on this movie, I'm sure he's glad that it paid off because he's went on to have quite a career. From this point, I mean, we have Parenthood, Backdraft, Far and Away, Apollo 13, Ed TV, A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man, Da Vinci Code.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
And it comes full circle. He ends up doing Solo a couple of years ago. But yeah, I mean, Ron Howard's got quite a career now. So whatever he had to put up with from George Lucas and Willow, I'm sure he's happy he did it. Let's talk about our nostalgia for Willow. I remember personally seeing the trailer for Willow when I was a kid and being so awestruck by it. I was like, whoa. I was obsessed with Mad Mardigan. The little bit of Mad Mardigan they showed in the trailer for this, I was like, whoa, I want to go see this movie. I mean, being the fan of Conan that I am and the swashbuckling and everything, and he just looks so fucking cool in those trailers, man.
You are great.
How about you guys? What do you guys remember about when this came out?
The thing that stuck out to me in the trailer and in the movie is General Kale's mask.
Oh, yeah.
That skull mask, that stuck with me. I mean, I was getting into the world of heavy metal at this time, and I'm like, that is so metal.
Yeah.
I mean, 1988, we had And Justice for All. Hello, come on.
Darkness imprisoning me.
I mean, in 1988, the effects in the commercial shows Brazil, when she changes, they showed a little bit of that in the trailer, I believe, when we were kids, and that was because Lucas couldn't make the movie when he wanted to because he had to wait for technology to catch up.
Basically, he had to create ILM. It's almost like the George Cameron stuff with Avatar now, it's almost like the James Cameron stuff with Avatar now. Like, he had to build the technology to make the movie he wanted to make.
In order to tell the story, I have to use special effects in order to create the environments.
The effects broaden the palette of filmmaking. And this film has a lot of effects in it. We're going to be way over 400 effect shots by the time we're done on it.
And that's a big draw to this movie as well. Like, they were doing things on screen that you had never seen before. That morphing scene where she is turning back into a human and it's all these different animals morphing, you didn't see that on screen. That was a big part of this movie production, is they wanted to show that in camera. And there was a lot that went into that. There's a deleted scene in this movie with a character by the name of Fish Boy that they completely cut out of the movie because it does not work at all.
The setup for it was great, was tough to let go of, although it was continuing to be a huge visual effects challenge. The mechanical fish, we were having the same kind of problem that Spielberg had with Jaws. We were having a hard time really making that believable. And to this day, as I talk about it, I feel a little pang because a part of me really loved Fish Boy.
I'm so glad they cut it from the movie. It's an interesting little thing, but they just couldn't get it to work. But other than that,
kind of got some Jason Voorhees vibes.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
Bold, wet boy.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest thing, was the effects in this movie is stuff that nobody had ever seen before.
Well, you got those kind of groundbreaking effects. Like you said, there's stop motion,
old school
monsters, there's practical stuff, there's rotoscoping stuff, there's all kind, like, you name it. There's like every kind of effect is in this movie from the time, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, just all that stuff.
I mean, how many times did you watch this movie? I mean, I didn't get to go to the theater and see it, but it was definitely one of those ones that you were waiting to come out to your local VHS rental store. I remember it used to actually take like 2 years to be on HBO Saturday night movie and shit like that. And we would watch it when it came on TV. But I mean, this was a definitely well-rented movie.
I don't remember if I went to the theater and saw it or not. I know I had an inkling to go to the theater to see it, but I can't remember if I did. How about you, Eric?
I don't remember either. I do remember loving this as a kid. I remember loving Mad Mardigan. Like you guys mentioned, I loved Willow as well, and his magic tricks and things like that. I always loved magic as a kid, so the fact that he was wanting to learn magic, I could just kind of relate to that. It's funny because I think magic is boring now, but whatever. One thing this movie reminds me of, I just want to mention it because it just from the same time period, even though we talk about a lot of fantasy stuff, I guess you could argue Indiana Jones has some fantasy elements in it as well, but
yeah.
This movie reminds me a lot of the Indiana Jones films, particularly Temple of Doom.
Is it the snow scene when they're going down the mountain?
The snow scene, the sled scene reminds me of not just the snow scene from Temple of Doom, but also the minecart.
Yeah,
that escape. They both feel very similar. The horse-drawn carriage chase scene reminds me of some Indiana Jones stuff. Yeah. High-speed chase, it would be trucks in Indiana Jones rather than but obviously you got the Lucas Spielberg connection, and then I think Mad Mardigan has similar vibes to Indiana Jones. He's kind of gruff, but he's got a soft spot, and he's kind of funny, and you know, like he's a ladies' man, and you know, you got a lot of similar things going on there. Obviously, some similarities to Han Solo as well.
I think you just can't bear to let a gorgeous guy like me out of your sight.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just so cool. I mean, you know, the ladies love him. He's funny.
Well, that's what I will go ahead and say with my first watch of this movie is being so into that trailer and being like obsessed with Mad Mardigan in that trailer. I was ready. I was ready for some swashbuckling. I was ready for this cool, awesome swordsman to come on screen and just mesmerize me throughout the entire movie. And I remember when I first watched this, I was pretty let down with the amount of Mad Mardigan that's in this movie. Like,
not a lot.
And the introduction to Mardigan in this really threw me for a loop when I was a kid, because I'm seeing this awesome hero-esque guy in the trailer, and we open this movie with him in a fucking in a cage with dirty, nasty shit all over his teeth, and I was like, ugh, this is the hero I'm supposed to be following in this movie? I was really, really taken aback by the way they introduced Mad Mardigan in this movie, for sure. Did you guys feel that way at all, or?
Oh, well, I was gonna say, you know, you talk about how we see Mad Mardigan. Just imagine if John Cusack would have got the part.
See, I didn't really look at who was up for any of the roles in this.
He wanted it. I mean, like, he was trying for it.
Wow.
I don't remember being so hyped up that that I was disappointed with Mad Mardigan. I like that introduction. I like when they're standing on that corner and they're trying to flag people down and they just keep going by. It's almost like a highway, like with cars driving by. You know, like you'd think somebody on a horse would stop and go, what's going on? Why are you
holding a baby?
Yeah, what's going on here? But yeah, they just buzz by like cars. It's just really funny. Well, you can't tell with a baby if it's a Nelwyn or the other kind, right? Also, it's interesting to think, like, you think of the Nelwyns as being little people, but they're really not. They're medium, because the brownies are the real
brownies are
right. We'll get into the brownies, because I remember not liking the brownies very much when I saw this as a kid.
I've never liked the brownies that much, and honestly, no one in this movie likes the brownies either. They're like, oh, I hate brownies.
You are crawling with brownies.
Ah! I hate brownies!
They haven't had the right kind of brownies.
All right. Well, enough of our nostalgia about this movie. We're going to get into talking about the actual movie. That's going to do it for our Back in Time segment. Moving on. Ewoks, Iceman, and a usual suspect. It's time for Almost Famous.
I know that, dude.
I don't know them. I know her.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name? That guy who was in that movie that was out last year?
I'm sort of famous for being almost famous.
And if you're new to the show, this is where we discuss the people in front of the camera, where we've seen them before, and decide who's famous for being almost famous. Quite a big cast here, so let's go ahead and talk about some of them. We've got Val Kilmer.
If you really are a princess, take care of him.
Had done quite a bit at this point. You know, you got Top Gun. Was Real Genius before this? I believe it was. Where was you guys' first time seeing Val Kilmer? This was probably one of my first times watching Val Kilmer in a movie.
Real Genius.
Sorry, it's just that I didn't want you guys to think I was stuffy, you know, no fun. All brain, no penis.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Real Genius wasn't one I watched as a little kid.
Man,
probably Top Gun.
I think that's where a lot of people were, was Top Gun.
I think at this point he was definitely the big name in other than Tom Cruise, he was a big name for Top Gun.
You can be my wingman anytime.
But this was probably the first movie I really paid attention to him. I think I had seen Top Gun at this point, but I didn't remember that Val Kilmer was in this movie. I mean, for the longest time, I knew Val Kilmer as Mad Mardigan.
Yeah,
but,
and I always thought it was Mad Mardigan, 2 words.
Like Mad Mardigan.
Mad was a descriptor, like he was crazy,
right?
You know, because he does seem kind of crazy. So I was like, oh, that's Mad Mardigan, like, you know, like he's nuts. No, it's one word. One word, Mad Mardigan.
Mad Mardigan.
Like Madonna or Cher.
Or Beyonce.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's gone on to have a great career. Unfortunately, he's not acting anymore. I think Top Gun Maverick was his last appearance in a film because of some health issues and whatnot. I'm not super familiar with what he has and what's going on with him, but I know they did a documentary about it, and I haven't watched it yet. And people say it's really good, but it's it just seems like it's going to be sad, and I avoid it because of that.
But I guess it contains a lot of footage that he shot himself over the years.
Yeah.
Which is probably pretty cool to go through and like see his life through film.
I think I read that. I think
home
it's
movies and stuff.
Yeah, I think his son's the one who narrates a lot of it. I think I read something like that.
Right, because he can't talk anymore.
Yeah, he can't talk anymore. Yeah.
One of my favorite performances from him is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I feel like that is a very underrated movie and performance from Val Kilmer. I think he's fucking hilarious in that movie.
Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No! The definition of the word idiot, which you fucking are.
Yeah, he's great.
No, his best role is, and you know what I'm going to say. Eric knows what movie I'm going to say. Is
Tombstone.
Nonsense. I've not yet begun to defile myself.
Fucking Tombstone. I'll be a Huckleberry. I love him. And dude, he is the best Doc Holliday ever.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. He's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then we've got Warwick Davis. First time he's having a starring role here.
17 years old in this
That's
movie.
what I was going to say. I didn't know he was 17 when he made this.
Even crazier, he was 11
11?
in
when he did Wicked.
Return of the Jedi.
It's
11.
11!
It's so crazy, too, when you see his body movements in this, you can absolutely tell Wicket is Warwick Davis.
Yeah, you go back and you watch it, yeah. But his most famous role is the Leprechaun.
A ring around a rosy, a bucket full of posy.
If you want to go back and check out our coverage of Leprechaun, go back and check that one out.
I think he did, 5 or 6 of those movies as the Leprechaun, I think.
Yeah, I know he wasn't in the last one. Origins, I think, is the name of it.
Yeah, they went a whole different way with it. Yeah.
I've only seen the first Leprechaun. Well, no, I take that back. I've seen Leprechaun in the Hood, but I don't know anything. I can't remember anything about it, so I might as well not have seen it.
No.
You got Joanne Whaley. She looks super familiar, but I can't tell you another movie I've seen her in.
I had a love scene with Joanne Whalley, and it was just very difficult.
And it was quite tough physically to do.
I couldn't remember my lines somehow. Just when I would kiss her and then I would forget what I was going to say, so we had to shoot that over and over again. I never did get it right. We got along all right in the end.
Apparently so. Val Kilmer and co-star Joanne Whalley, who met on the set of Willow, were married last March.
Dude, I always had a thing for Saoirse. Dude, she was hot.
Saoirse, I mean, and I think the reason I think I know who she is more than I do is because she looks a lot like Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I remember that Walk Like an Egyptian video, man. Susanna Hoffs in that was like, that was every boy's like dream girl in the 80s, man. Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles. And then you've got a slew of little people actors in this, and that's really where I'm going to get into Almost Famous a little bit here in just a minute. But not a whole lot of other people in this movie that I recognize other than some of the little people that we're about to get to, other than Kevin Pollak.
Kevin Pollak, of course.
As Rule, one of the brownies. And I got to say, man, we'll get into it when we get into talking about the movie, but I've come around on the brownies. I think the brownies are hilarious.
No, Rule rules. That's all there is to it, dude.
Yeah!
I've got one I wanted to mention for Almost Famous.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's do it. Do it.
Pat Roach.
Yes.
Pat Roach is Kale, General Kale Salad. This man, you know, I had mentioned thinking about Indiana Jones. He was the big guy that Indy fights by the plane,
airplane, and he gets chopped up.
And he's also the big Indian guy in Temple of Doom. In brownface.
He also has a role in Last Crusade. I just don't know what it is.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And he's also in Conan the Destroyer and Red Sonja.
Well, his face is covered for a majority of this movie, so that doesn't help things. But do you guys feel like they put prosthetics on his eyes?
They did.
Because
it looks like his eyebrow bones are out here.
They protrude out big time, and like from what I remember of the guy who fights Indy in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he didn't look like that.
Yeah, but so you got I'll throw my Almost Famous out there. I did Kevin Pollak.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
No, dude, I'm sorry. I think Kevin Pollak is a big name. I don't think Kevin Pollak's Almost Famous.
Dude, if I walked outside and asked anybody who Kevin Pollak was, they go, who? But then I would describe them.
Outside. What's outside your house? Like a
Dude, there's tons of people outside.
There's like a cow and like a jackrabbit outside.
If I was to just ask people who don't do the movie thing like we do, who Kevin Pollak was, they would have no fucking clue. If you say Tom Cruise, yes. You say Val Kilmer, yes. Kevin Pollak, they're like, huh? And I go,
I think Kevin Pollak is famous enough just for his stand-up comedy.
Right, and his impressions, his celebrity impressions. Like, I think there's more people that know about Kevin Pollak than you think, my friend.
Well, see, I didn't even know of that. He was a comedian and did impressions, so that tells you that.
Well, then you need to go look up some of his celebrity impressions because he fucking nails quite a bit of them.
But if you think that, then my other one was Tony Cox.
I have Tony Cox written down, but he is not my pick for Almost Famous. But yes, Tony Cox.
Bad Santa.
Friday. he was in Friday.
Lots of recognizable little folk in this. Like, it's crazy.
God, yeah.
This group that they have that takes off from the Shire in the beginning. There's a lot of familiar faces there.
Takes off from the Shire.
Well, my pick for Almost Famous would be Phil Fondacaro. That's a little person you see in quite a few movies. Like if there are little people in a movie, he's probably one of them. This guy has been in a ton of stuff. Namely, what I know him from is Ghoulies 2, Garbage Pail Kids, Troll. He was in Phantasm 2, Bordello of Blood, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, which Jason loves. This guy has been in a ton of stuff.
He was in Return of the Jedi as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people in this movie...
Yeah, not surprisingly. Yeah.
There's actually a cameo from Kenny Baker, who is in R2-D2 in the Star Wars movies. He's one of the band members in the Nolan Village.
Also, Billy Barty.
Yep.
Yes.
Billy Barty.
I mean,
Josh should know who that is. This is from one of his favorite movies ever.
Gwildor and Masters of the Universe, of course.
Masters of the Universe.
Screwball and Legend. Another Legend reference.
UHF?
In this episode. Yep, UHF. He gets a skin knee as the cameraman.
Oh, did I do that? Oopsie.
Yep.
That was so sad, dude. Sorry, when I was watching that as a kid and the little guy gets knocked over and he gets a skin knee or elbow or something, I can't remember. I was like, you son of a bitch. Like, I hated that. Whoever knocked him over, I'm just like, no.
Was it Jean Marsh that plays Bavmorda? Mm-hmm. She was the Wicked Witch in the Return to Oz movie that freaking removed her head and shit. That shit fucked me up as a kid. It's a horror movie more than it is anything.
Return to Oz is the thing of nightmares, my friends. Like, if you have not seen Return to Oz, be prepared. It is nothing like Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, wheelers will ruin your life. Every time you hear a squeaky wheel, did you hear a squeaky wheel? You're like, what the hell? I'm just waiting for that little mask face to come over my shoulder right now. But yeah, that's all I had.
So we're all three nominating a different person for Almost Famous this week. We've got Eric with
I'm going with Pat Roach.
I'll do the Tony Cox.
And I will do Phil Fondacaro. So a new little piece of Almost Famous that I'd like to start doing here is I'd like to know what you guys think. Who's the MVP of Willow? I will say I think it's Warwick Davis. I think Warwick Davis really gives a really good performance in this movie.
I think I agree. Val is awesome, and it's obviously between those two, I would say, but Warwick's the heart of Willow.
Yeah. And you know that Lucas was pissed because they gave Kilmer top billing over him?
Oh, really?
Lucas was mad. Like,
not just Val Kilmer. I think Joanne Whaley was put above him as well. Wow. Like, he's third on the cast list in the beginning of the movie. So, yeah, that's a little heartbreaking. And I mean, I would be pissed too if I was Lucas. I mean, you're trying to give this guy a break in his career, which, I mean, we can all admit this really broke Warwick Davis out into the mainstream. I mean, we're finally seeing his face and
like headlining a film.
Yeah,
being the titular character.
Right. And I think for him this is his first time front and center in a movie, and namely what really kind of put it over the top for me as far as the MVP of the movie is that scene after they take Allura, when Kale takes Allura, and you see him come out and he's bloody from dealing with the guys, and he just breaks down and cries. Like that performance from Warwick Davis right there is like, okay, he's my MVP of this movie. Like he gives a great performance in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's great.
I agree. I would go with that.
He's great. I've loved him ever since. You know, just every time you see him, he's just such a fun, happy presence. You know, like interviews and things like that. He just seems like such a nice dude.
Like Willow. It's very unusual to have a hero of a film being short. Normally they're tall, dark, and handsome. You know, I'm not tall. I'm not dark. You give me the handsome bit.
I mean, even in Leprechaun, I mean, as much as we just kind of just dumped on Leprechaun when we talked about it, he makes that movie fun. I'm not sure if that continues throughout the movies. We'll see as we go through that series. But yeah, I mean, if there's anything I'm loving in Leprechaun, it's Warwick Davis doing his performance. So, but that's going to do it for our discussion of Almost Famous. Who do you guys think is the MVP of Willow? Let us know in the comments below. And who would you nominate for Almost Famous? Let us know in the comments below. All right, now we're going to get to
the good, the bad, the movie.
We're going to be doing this a little bit different if you've been listening to our show over the past couple of years, but this is going to be our main discussion about the movie, and really where we're going to start talking about our watch this time around. We talked about our nostalgia for Willow, how we felt about it when we were kids growing up, and how many times we watched it. Now, coming into Willow as adults, what did we think of it this time around? So I want to ask you guys, what's good about Willow? Eric, we'll start with you. What do you think's good about Willow?
I think there's a lot of good. I don't really know where to start other than the beginning of the film. I love how dark they're willing to go. Like the beginning of this movie is dark as hell. Like they are straight up going after every baby in the kingdom or whatever, or in the land or whatever it's called. You know, that's one thing that in some of these 80s fantasy they're willing to do, right? I mean, moments like Artax and Neverending Story, moments that stick with us for 30 plus years that I don't know that you get in like a family fantasy movie nowadays that has been sort of pulled back some of this dark stuff. So I like how, I mean, the midwife lady, that she gets mauled by mutant dogs.
I loved these dogs, especially like as a kid. Like I thought these dogs were awesome. You can kind of see that they're just putting masks on real dogs at this point.
No, but in 2023, I'm asking myself, why don't we see more dogs with prosthetics on?
Yeah,
Is it like a animal cruelty thing? You can't put like a costume on a dog anymore. That shit looks awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, those dogs look like overgrown rats.
What's the
Because
tail?
it shows her the way the tail comes down.
Yeah.
I thought it was just some kind of weird thing as a kid, you know, like what the hell is it? Then you find out is they just put masks.
I think it's really effective. I mean, even now
great.
it's cool. Like, yeah, you can tell it's a dog, but
well, they also had puppets. They had puppets that they used for it as well when they were having lunging shots and everything. But yeah, since you bring up Allura, like the baby that they have, the twins that they used for Allura in the movie, I've got to say this is some of the best baby facial expression acting in movies, dude. Like I think all of the shots they cut to of her when something's happening are golden. Like I think the baby does she is
adorable.
They had to have the camera rolling 24/7 with this kid or something, because they got some great reaction shots out of this kid.
I would even say that she's allurable.
Oh.
Hey, I do want to bring up one thing. He was talking about at the beginning with the whole killing the babies and everything. Does it not have a 10 Commandments feel?
Sure, very biblical.
Very biblical, like a whole Moses and the lady puts her in the Nile and
she puts Allura in the basket or in the thing down the river as well.
Yeah, that very convenient floating piece of whatever, and the baby stays perfectly center and floats down the river.
Yeah, I need to get away. Look, a flotation device.
Baby-shaped floaty.
But what's cool, like you're talking about how dark it is you see the pretty baby float away, and right there in the background, you see the dogs eating her.
Yeah.
Like I said, they stay with the darkness right there.
Hell yeah.
Not just the baby stuff either. Like when Bavmorda comes in and finds the baby gone, and the mom is just going to town, and she's like, kill her. Like she she's ending this woman's life right now. Like that's this woman just gave birth to her child that she's had to send away, and now she is dead. Like, it's pretty brutal, man. I will say, watching it this time, I feel like Bavmorda is very one note. They don't give you a whole lot about Bavmorda in this, just that she wants to rule the world.
And she dresses like Mumra from Thundercats.
Yeah.
When she opens up that to put the robe on, I went, look, it's Mumra.
Yeah.
It's still a good look. I don't care. She looks awesome.
Yeah. The production design in this movie is fantastic.
Oh yeah, her and Kale, Salad, and
well, Jason brought it up already. That the mask that Kale wears, dude. Holy shit. That is all. Like, what do you think that's a skull of?
It looks like an ape skull or something.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Well, I was saying
I don't think it's a real skull of anything.
Well, with the prosthetics of his face, it might be his dad's skull.
Right.
Because
or his mom's.
Or his mom's skull. When they died, he's like, oh, I'm gonna put this right over my face.
Well, it's
to
funny,
honor thy father.
It's funny you say that, because my reasoning for the reason he looks the way he does under the mask is because he's been wearing that mask so long that his face is just taking shape around the mask.
Yeah, maybe Bavmorda put it on him as a kid and like pulled it really tight as a torture, and then his face grew into the mask. There
maybe
you go.
he's just getting some fillers,
Well, little injection.
Yeah, just a little here, a little there,
Well, I mean, there is magic. Maybe he had some magic done to his face.
But he needs to do a better job. That's
I mean, there's some real physical changes people go through later.
Oh, the pig scene scarred me as a kid, dude. That pig scene, I wasn't expecting that shit,
dude.
And when you start
Pig Mad Mardigan, you're like, oh no, like my man.
It's like, oh no, give me the dirty teeth back. I don't want him to look like a pig. No. If I had watched this movie before we did our top 4 douchebags episode, Burgle Cut would have been on my list. That dude's a fucking dick.
Burgle Cunt?
Burgle Cunt. Yes. Yes, I like it, Eric. I like it.
I like it! I like it!
I was debating on whether I wanted to say that out loud, but couldn't resist.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a jerk. I really love Willow's kids too. They're adorable.
Oh, dude, his wife. The thing between him and his wife, man, it makes you. I don't care how big badass you are, dude. This shit makes your heart melt. When they're together, whoa.
At the end, when she realizes he's back, it kind of makes me a little teary-eyed, man. Man, they're back together. Like it's nice.
Well, even when they're leaving and she cut her hair to give to him, I mean, wow, man, that's love.
Well, I asked Jenny. I was like, I don't know, like, is this creepy or is this kind of like, I don't know, like something about cutting your hair off and giving it to somebody?
Yeah, you wouldn't give it to a stranger.
Right.
Yeah. But she's, it is kind of weird, but I guess, they can't text each other or anything. Thanks for your time.
No, you mentioned Willow's kids. Jenny and I use the whole dada thing all the time because, obviously we talk for our dogs because we're normal people. We talk for our dogs, but
so do we. Yeah.
And
we do the same thing.
Anytime we come home or they look like they're excited for us, it's always dada. Like that's one of those things from this movie that stuck with me, and Jenny and I say it all the time. I love Willow's reaction to when the baby does show up and the Kaya is talking about, should we take it to the High Council? And Willow's freak out about it is that whole segment where he's freaking out about the baby, I think is great.
Council? No, they'll think it's a bad omen. There'll be a flood or a drought, and everyone will blame me for it. That's right, he's that lousy farmer too. Let's get him!
Willow, calm down.
It's very natural. Like, if you found a baby, wouldn't you react the same way? Even nowadays, you'd be like, oh shit, what am I gonna do with this baby? I don't want to keep it.
Is it like the old days? You take it, drop it off at the fire department or something?
Right.
What do I need
How
to
do we get rid of this baby? I don't want to hurt it, but I don't want it.
Well, in a sense, that's what they do. I mean, they give the baby to Mad Mark.
Yeah.
Might as well be dropping it off at a fire station.
Yeah, it's worse. Yeah.
My biggest takeaway from this movie, watching it this time around, was I've already mentioned it in an earlier segment, but like I've come around on the brownies. Like, I think the brownies are hilarious.
Oh, you fool. He does not need to know everything.
I didn't tell him everything.
You told him enough.
What did I say?
Every time something's happening with the brownies, it's cracking me up, dude. Like, how do you, I mean, obviously Eric doesn't feel too great about the brownies. Jason, did you have a change of opinion about the brownies this time around?
Oh, no, I've always liked Rule. I've always, I mean, that's part of my good is Rule.
That would take forever. Besides, even if we find them, they'll catch us, stick us in cages, torture us, and finally devour us.
Are you suggesting we go home?
Nah, this is more fun.
All right.
Yeah, I can probably get what Eric's saying. It can be kind of annoying, but I like that character because he's different than all the other characters in the movie. I love it when he falls into the beer and he's drunk and he comes back out and he gets the dust and he's wanting the dust to do whatever, and then he falls in love with the cat, and it's just, and he's ready to fight anybody. They don't care how little they are, you know, dude. I just love
what I really came.
He's the comedy in the movie.
They are fearless, dude. Like they will go into battle with everybody. I love that. I think they're.
Well, I think part of my issue with the brownies is the fact that the worst effects in the film revolve around the brownies. You know, I'm not trying to penalize the film for that, but it's, you know, it's kind of the worst. Like, I'm pulled out of the film a little bit every time they're on, particularly certain scenes where they're very clearly, you know, in like a composite thing.
Yeah.
I do like when he falls in the bucket like a cartoon mouse or something and just gets drunk in a bucket of booze. That's always fun. I always assume if I fell into a giant vat of beer or whiskey, I would just immediately come up drunk and hiccuping bubbles. Yeah, they are obnoxious, and I get they're supposed to be. I like that everyone hates them. And like treats them like vermin, like almost like they're just like annoying, like an annoyance. Not that they're some like, oh my god, there's these tiny people. It's like you talk about them like you would talk about rats or squirrels or pigeons or whatever. You know, they're just annoying.
Good. Take these two lizards out and drown them.
Lizards? Who are you calling lizards?
You got some definite Gulliver's Travels shit going on in this scene too.
That's the part that I do like, because I've always loved Gulliver's Travels. Yeah. I do like when they have him tied down.
I like when Willow gets up though and just kind of does the and like scares the brownies away.
Well, the one good thing that we haven't talked about, because the whole thing with the Hobbit thing, you got Sam and Frodo, you got Migosh and Willow. We have not talked about his best friend.
He's definitely the Samwise Gamgee of this movie.
I mean, like when they ask any volunteers, he's the first one to volunteer. I was like, no, this is totally Sam and Frodo.
And I love the fact that they make Burglecut go along as well, because he won't shut his mouth. You know, that's the whole point of the High Owl one. And you know, I love the fact that Willow wants to be a wizard or a magician or whatever, a sorcerer in this world. And you go throughout this movie and he's learning magic from Rizal. He's got the wand. He's learning to be a sorcerer in a sense. I love at the end of the movie though, he's able to save the day by just being just by using parlor tricks and being a magician, you know?
Being himself, right?
Yes.
He's good enough the way he is.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great cap on the end of the movie, is like, dude, you don't need to be a sorcerer. You are good enough, just who you are, you know?
Yeah, it's a nice moment where he gets to save the day. And of course, this baby somehow knows.
Yeah, because she speaks.
That's one thing that I'll say kind of leans into my bad a little bit, is there's not a lot of explanation for some of the things that are going on in this. One of them is the baby, like, you know, there's all this weight and stuff and all these dramatics put into destroying this baby. It has to be sacrificed on the altar and all of this shit. Like, can it not just be killed? Like, you're sending dogs after it. Like, can't it just die? It seems like there's this whole big production put into making this baby not be able to take her power.
Once you get the baby, just kill it.
Yeah.
Kill the baby.
It's like when Saoirse had it, when Kale had it.
Wow.
It was like, if you really want to get rid of the baby, you could have done it 5 times now.
I have the child!
How do you guys feel about the introduction of Madmartigan in this movie?
I think it's funny. I like it. you know, he's such a archetype of like this sort of scoundrel thief, you know, adventurer guy, and perfect way then to show that he's been captured and he's just rotting away in this thing, and he's gonna say whatever he needs to say to get out of it. And I think it's a great way to introduce him.
How do you like his cry acting?
I don't know why I tried.
That's like 3 layers of acting, man. He's acting like he doesn't know how to act.
Right.
There you go.
Some deep shit right there.
Anything else you want to bring up as far as good in this movie? Like anything that struck you this time watching it that didn't strike you before?
Yeah, kind of like I was mentioned before. I love all the escape scenes, the carriage escape. I love the sled escape. I love the music. The score to this is awesome.
It's James Horner doing his best John Williams impression.
I guess, but I mean, it's
when they get out of the tent and you finally see Mad Mardigan's sword fight. Like that score right there is awesome, dude.
It is.
And like that's that moment when that's the Mad Mardigan I've been waiting for this whole movie, dude.
And then it's only lasts
that's the
for
first
that
time
long.
you see him actually like fight somebody.
Yeah.
It feels like an Indiana Jones movie in those moments to me, and it gives me the same feeling of like excitement, wonder, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's excellent. I put it right up there with anything. I love the two-headed monster, which I guess is named after Siskel and Ebert.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the names.
All the villains are named after critics.
Right. So is Kale. I don't remember all the exact things, but
that might explain why the critics score on Rotten Tomatoes is low.
I also really love when he fights like the troll monkeys, like those troll guys that climb all around, and they look kind of like the apes from 2001. They kind of remind me.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And then, you know, when he kills the one and it melts.
Yeah.
Love the effects there. It kind of reminds me of The Thing. Like,
there was apparently there was apparently a lot more with the trolls in that scene, and there was also a subplot that was cut from the movie with Saoirse finding her father. And all the people that are encased in ice in Tir Asleen, her father is one of the people there. I think he's actually the king of Tir Asleen or whatever.
Oh wow.
And there's like I think 5 cut scenes, and it kind of makes Saoirse's turn to the good side work a little bit better once you know that, because it does
get to that in bad.
Yeah. You gotta save it, Josh. Save it. He keeps wanting to drift into the bad.
I love Mad Mardigan fighting everybody basically by himself at the castle where he tries to make his stand.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of has to make you think, did Kevin McAllister watch Willow before he set up his house for the Wet Bandits?
Hey, did you not think when he was doing that, it had a very throwback to Conan? Remember when they set up in the ruins and they were setting up all the booby trap type things?
Yeah.
It had a real Conan feel to it right there.
Yeah, and just the badass moment where he jumps on the monster and just like, I mean, that Martin goes off, dude.
That's one thing I like about Val Kilmer's performance here is he plays it with a lot of human emotion to it too. Like a lot of the times your heroes have this larger than life personality and they just go into battle. He has that moment where he's like,
he's not like fearless. He actually is scared. He's nervous. He's
like, shit, I gotta kill this damn thing.
Yeah. Even when when it rises up out of the thing and everybody runs away, when he turns around, the look on his face is just like it looks like he shits his pants in that moment.
That is one of my good points of the movie, is when it comes out of the water and he's standing, he's like, and they're all like, and he's like, yeah, I'm a badass. Oh wait, what the fuck? I love that shot. That shit's so cool.
Or when that seems like something Indiana Jones would do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Or when he's saving Willow from the troll and the troll screams at him and he just screams right back at him.
Yeah.
Jason, how about you? You got anything we haven't talked about yet that you think?
I do like the morphing effects for Roselle that we see through the movie. I even like, the other ones you could definitely tell is like CGI morphing. But the one I liked is when she changes from whatever that little squirrel looking thing is. I can never remember the name of it. And it changes to a bird, the way it folds. That's a good shot. I mean, that's some practical stuff of it with a little bit of CGI mixed in. I love that shot. I like the fight with the altar at the end of the movie when they take the wand and it hits that little metal altar and it starts walking around the room and Willow's trying to fight an altar.
Well, just the design of it, dude. Like if you watch when the mouth opens, it's skeleton hands.
It's skeleton hands opening the mouth.
That shit is metal too, dude.
It's so metal.
Talk about metal. I also really love. Sorry, Jason. I just want to throw in.
Sure.
I love Bavmorda's castle, whatever that's called. That castle is cool.
I love that it's dirty and gritty, and it doesn't look like an eloquent castle whatsoever.
It's freaking gigantic. It's like an evil castle, dude. It's like something from He-Man.
Snake Mountain.
It's like
Snake Mountain.
Yep.
It's like clearly an evil sorceress lives there.
Well, you got General Kale. He's Skeletor pretty much walking around.
True.
So
I love that nearly all of Kale's dialogue is like exclaimed, "This way!" It's like,
destroy the beast, find the baby.
It's always him exclaiming something. Open the gates! I have the child! Like, I love that all of his dialogue.
He's
like
metal, dude. He's like, yeah. He was listening. He was listening a lot of James Hetfield at that time.
Yeah.
Some the other stuff I love the whole when Mad Morgan gets hit with the
dust of broken hearts.
That whole change. I love the acting there because he walks toward her and then turns around and he's like, oh. Yeah. No, I can't. I gotta talk to you. I gotta touch you. It's just that's a good thing. I mean, it's some great lines. Guys, you want to throw down some lines for your lady? Write them down.
Your touch is worth 100,000 deaths.
And you can see it has an effect on Sorsha too. She walks away from that like, maybe I do want to get with this guy.
It's basically the entire basis for her character flip. So it better have worked.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of that is because it worked. Because I mean, look at her mother. I mean, she's never known love at all, and to feel that's probably what changes her so quickly.
It has to make you wonder how Sorsha even came to be anyway. Like, was there ever a loving relationship that obviously something resulted in baby Sorsha, but
we need to get into bad before we talk about this.
All right. Any more good stuff we want to bring up? Any key scenes? Anything?
I just want to bring up the whole sled ride down the hill, but the part where Mad Mardigan falls off and turns into a snowball rolling down. That's pretty fucking hilarious. I mean,
that's as ridiculous as the guy falling in the bucket and getting drunk. That's some goofy shit.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's fun because
fun, yeah.
I mean, as a kid, when I think of, because I've never been in snow and got to go sledding, the two movies I think of are Willow and Christmas Vacation.
Right.
Yeah. So
you don't think about Silent Night, Deadly Night, man?
Oh yeah, of course. So I'm like going through the woods, want to go sled and trying to hold on to my head.
I have one more good thing on my list. I like when Willow rides back into the Shire on Little Sebastian.
Bye, Little Sebastian.
There you go. We gotta work that Parks and Rec reference in there somewhere. Let's get into some bad. What did we walk away from watching Willow this time? What do we think was bad?
Okay, well, we should just talk about Sorsha, right? Because I think it's easy to forget when you're watching this movie because she's pretty and young and Mad Mardigan falls for her. Mm-hmm. It's easy to forget what she was up to in the beginning of this movie. She was rounding up pregnant women and babies.
That's something I always fall back on, and there's a moment in the movie where she kicks Willow, like kicks his ass out of the way. If I were Willow, I'd be like, hey, you owe me a fucking apology. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. She gets a free pass for just being like a pretty gal, I think.
Yeah, and I think that deleted scenes and the whole subplot with her dad makes her turn a lot more natural, and you kind of are put in her shoes a little bit better.
We really liked in the outline, we liked it in the screenplay, but we simply realized we had to streamline the story a bit. Although we brought Dad back for a brief cameo payoff at the end.
It's a little problematic for me too. Yeah. Jason, you got anything in particular you want to talk about that you thought was bad?
I just watched it straight off Disney Plus, but like the trolls climbing on the walls doesn't look that great. I mean, I think the morphing still looks okay, but you can see it's aged. That's something like in the brownies. I mean, I love the brownies, but the way they're inserted into the film, you can definitely tell they're just in there. I can see it really bad. It just doesn't seem like that part of it holds up for me as it did when I was a kid. Because back then I didn't care about that shit. But as watching it now and doing for this show, it's just kind of like, man, that just really doesn't hold up like it did. I mean, there are movies that are older that I think that still hold up better than that did.
I mean, it was ambitious, so that's always going to bite you a little bit when you're trying to do things, push the envelope.
I don't know if it's bad, but it's to me it's hilarious. It's like the fight at the end, Roselle and Bavmorda. Some of that is a little corny when they're fighting, and she lights her on fire and she freezes her. All I can hear was "Fight, Scorpion, Sub-Zero." That's a little that doesn't hold up either.
My biggest thing in that scene is when she's spinning Bavmorda around and she's going.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay. It reminds me of that scene from Freddy versus Jason, where he's throwing Jason around like a pinball machine.
Tilt.
So
yeah, I mean, I feel where you're coming from on the effects not holding up, but I'm kind of getting to a point where I can't really count that against the movie. I mean, they were working with what they had at the time, the best they could. Doesn't hold up, I agree. But I'm hesitant to call stuff like that bad at this point, because I mean, they really did some groundbreaking work with this movie, and it looks bad now because we have better technology. So
I think some things do look bad, even for the time. Mainly just the brownie stuff.
Yeah,
because it's just so hard to do that at that time. To do like,
if you think the brownies look bad in this, you should see what they did in the behind the scenes, and they green screen them into like the set that they're working on, like a normal behind the scenes interview would go, but they have like a Barbie dream house behind them and shit. It's kind of a funny interview they do, but
unfortunately, no special effects process can improve a bad attitude and a big ego.
Step inside and then you want to step inside?
No, I can't. I'm too big. I'm too big to get into the little
All right. I'm sorry, it's not you, it's everything. I didn't mean to bite your head off.
One other little bad thing, just nitpicking stuff. There is no fucking way in hell they dug holes to be able to hide horses and men outside that place within just an hour. I mean, there's like 100 men straight up cavalry running in.
Yes.
How?
That plan does not make sense. That castle is like the tallest castle ever. They could see for miles. There's no way you could do that without being seen. And it just doesn't even really make sense, because you could just put your army there.
Like there's a horse. There's a horse that's laying under a tarp. Like, how do you make that horse lay down for that long to disguise it? There's no fucking way.
Well, not only that, there's like 15 men come out of one hole.
Yeah.
You're like, that hole would have to be like 20 feet deep and like 100 yards long to hide all these guys.
You're right. But also, the surprise of them jumping out of the hole doesn't give you an advantage. No, because they still are far away from the castle. You're not gaining anything by hiding them.
Yeah, that's the next part. They send them out the drawbridge to go out to fight. At the time the first fucking horse comes out of the ground, raise the drawbridge. Game over.
Game over, man. It's game over.
It's over. You're not coming in. And
they had to send the guy that runs the drawbridge out with the other guys, so that's why
they're all standing up
like,
there.
wait, who knows how to use the drawbridge? I don't. Oh shit, he's the only guy.
You got Kale up. You got Kale up on the thing. Kill them. No, I agree. That was one of
that was bad. That was that's lazy writing. That was lazy writing by George Lucas.
Again, since we're in the bad zone, how's this baby gonna stop you? Maybe
because
when
it's
the baby grows up.
Yeah, when the baby
prophecy,
grows up.
Right? But like, you have a long time. You can kill his baby when the baby's 3, 4, 5, 7. You don't have to kill the baby right now. There's like
put her in the dungeon until she's 18 or whatever, and then you just
Right.
walk in and go stab. Done.
Right. We're not going to explain why this is, why, just do it.
Yeah, we got no explanation about the whole ritual with the blood and the red shit floating around in the room at the end when the lightning strikes her and all that stuff. There's nothing that describes the actual ritual of why they can't just kill the baby.
Well, that's the other big problem I have with Bavmorda's death, and essentially, like, Willow, as much as I like the fact that Willow saves the day by just being himself, he doesn't have to use sorcery. He uses his own disappearing pig trick.
Practical magic. But
the fact is, Bavmorda seems to just give in to that really easy. It's like she is an powerful sorcerer. She didn't see the disappearing pig trick coming. Like, it just seems so ridiculous.
In her days on the sorcerer circuit, when she first started out, she didn't know the pig trick. Come on.
She is kind of gullible, like, for being this like wise, like super powerful sorceress. Like, she's like, whoa. Like a simple like sleight of hand trick, like, totally stumps her. She's like, how can this be? This is impossible.
And she dies, but it's almost like she just fucking stubs her toe, falls over on the altar, and then she dies. It's like nothing substantial kills her.
The blood spills, and then she's dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of really muddy stuff with the magic.
Lazy writing, George Lucas. Sorry, I know you watch the show weekly, but I'm sorry.
Typical George Lucas.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, George Lucas.
Oh, sorry, George.
My last part of my bad for this movie is going to be Eric.
Oh, yeah. Not Eric, but Eric.
Not you, Eric. Eric. From the moment we are introduced to Eric, he is a downer. He has nothing positive to say.
Sit in your coffin and rot.
Every response he has to something is just like, oh, no, we're not going to win. We might as well just not even try. Like, he is such...
He's not going to help you, Peck. He's a worthless thief.
It wouldn't bother me so much if it weren't for the fact that Eric gets a fucking hero's death in the last battle.
Yeah.
He dies at the hands of Kale, and it's made to seem like, oh my God, we just lost somebody so endearing because he's a good guy. No, this dude's been a downer the entire movie. Like, fuck him.
Well, it's similar to the stuff we were talking about with Sorsha and with the prophecy and the magic. It's they're giving us these moments that we're used to, and we're familiar with these moments. Like you said, the hero's death, the prophecy, the this, the that. We know these moments from other films, and we know how to feel when they happen.
Right.
But they're not set up. They're not they're not payoffs to something that was set up properly beforehand. They're just sort of there. So it lacks a little bit of depth, and it lacks a little bit of setup, you know?
Yeah, and the only thing I could draw from Eric's character is, he's been in battle with all the stuff that's been happening that we haven't been seeing.
I've lost more than half my men fighting Bavmorda. Now you and this Peck are gonna take her on?
He's just done nothing but lose this entire movie, so he probably has every right to feel like they're just gonna lose all the time. But it doesn't make me feel any better at the end.
Win this war for me.
I don't feel bad that this dude's dying right now. Like, it's just a bad character arc. It's a bad character in the movie, in my opinion.
Hey, is he the same guy who plays in Superman 3?
He is, yeah.
And he's the one that Richard Pryor gets drunk in order to get into the computer system there in the Smallville.
Brad.
You never do pass out, do you?
Nope. Brad. Yes, Brad. Dude, now I hate Eric even more. Because that character was horrible in that movie. It's horrible in this one, too.
Fucking Brad.
Brad Erics.
Are we getting ugly? Because I have something for ugly.
I don't really have much to say as far as ugly goes in this movie, but Eric, I'll throw it over to you.
I want to talk about this baby doll everyone's carrying around throughout the movie. If this were a baby, would have died 50 times through the course of this film. I'm watching this baby's neck snap left and right.
Yeah.
Survives multiple crashes into things, falling out of things, jumping.
The wagon?
Baby and the head's just bopping around all over the place.
When Kale's riding away with the baby, you can see it just flopping around.
Well, not only that, like the wagon scene when it hits the piece of the log in there and it's flying through the air. The baby should have been flying through the air too.
I mean, you could take this all the way back to the moment that baby's put on that flotation device, it would have drowned.
The magic of Allura is that she's like indestructible. Like she's like the world's strongest baby.
She just wards off bad things. In that case, she could have just warded off everything that happened in this movie.
Just leave her in a field.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. She's fine.
The midwife or whatever it is that takes the baby, like she has the baby right there as Bab Morta's walking into the cell. And by the time Bab Morta realizes the baby's gone, she's halfway across the Shire. Like
the security in this dungeon that a midwife can you're collecting babies, right? Like your sole goal here is to collect babies, and you've got a midwife that's allowed to come in and deliver babies, and she's walking out with a package that clearly could hide a baby, and nobody checked it at any point throughout the entire gigantic castle dungeon. She's like, oh, I'm just standing here with this basket with a bunch of
just got my dirty laundry over it. Dirty laundry, that's all this is. Dirty laundry.
And it's crying.
Yeah.
My laundry's crying. Don't worry about it. What was that? Nothing. Just my laundry.
All right, well, that's our good, the bad, and the ugly for Willow. And again, we're going to try something new here at the end. We got a little rating system thing we're going to do, and we're going to wrap up what we thought overall of Willow. I'm going to throw it to Eric and Jason, and I'm also going to give a number from 1 to 100. We're going to score Willow, and we're going to kind of keep score of the movies we watched throughout the year. And at the end of the year, we'll have a little discussion about the movies we rated the highest throughout this year. So, Eric, why don't you go ahead and wrap up your thoughts on Willow, and go ahead and throw out a number, just whatever your number from 1 to 100 would be for Willow.
As we discussed, there's some logistical questions. There's some things that maybe aren't set up or explained as well as they could be in Willow, but I think just the cast, the art direction, the music, and just the direction of the film is enough fun and wonder to be a really great feel-good watch. It makes me happy watching it. I don't know if it's nostalgia. I think Val Kilmer and Warwick Davis just bring a lot of life to this movie, and they're just fun to be with. Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm gonna give it a 75.
Jason, you want to go next?
My wrap up of the film would be it was a good time to watch it 20 years years later. I still enjoy
35 years.
No, I'm talking about for myself. Okay. It's probably been 20 years since I watched it last. Right?
Okay.
Revisiting these characters, Mad Mardigan, Willow, General Kale. Still love the Kale mask. Still love the fun of it. Like you said, it definitely has that Indiana Jones type feel to it, mixed in with a little bit of Ten Commandments, stuff like that. The special effects were cool back then. I was a little disappointed watching it now, and they just don't hold up like they did. Give it another watch. I know you got the show out. Watch this and then watch the show. Far as my score, it's funny you said 75 because I wrote down 77. A good solid 77.
Okay, 77 for Jason. I feel the same way you guys do going back to it this time. It's one of those that I don't revisit often, and it's funny because I loved this movie as a kid and I watched it a lot, but as an adult I haven't revisited it a whole lot. Like I said in the beginning, I was a little hesitant to watch the movie when we decided we were going to watch it, and I walked away from it having a blast, man. I think Warwick Davis's performance is amazing. Like, just for the fact that that's his first real time in front of the camera in a leading role, he kills it, man. I think he does a great job. I was lukewarm on the brownies as a kid. I did not like them. Watching it this time, the brownies just made me laugh the whole time. The effects don't hold up, as you guys say, but that didn't deter me from laughing my ass off at them. Kevin Pollak is great as Rule.
Rule rules!
So, and
O'Doyle rules.
Let us know if you're watching the show in the comments below. Let us know if it's good. I mean, we've slept on it at this point, but I'll probably go give it a watch now. So my score would be a 72. Giving Willow
wow, I gave him the highest score. I literally thought you guys were gonna go in the 80s. I was like, I'm gonna be the guy that's just a Debbie Downer here, but it's actually Josh.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's just the number that came to mind for me.
Pretty close. I mean, we average out to 3 out of 4 stars here, basically.
The VHS Files overall score for Willow, 224. 224 for Willow. So we'll revisit that at the end of the year and see where it lies on the movies we've watched throughout the year. But that's going to do it for our discussion about Willow. Please tell us in the comments below, what's your good, the bad, and the ugly with Willow? Do you like the stuff we like? Do you not like some of the stuff we liked? What's your bad? What's your ugly? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to talk about Willow with you. Make sure you go to Redbubble and get some merch. You know, you got to represent VHS Files with that merchandise. So go to Redbubble, pick up some VHS Files merch. Visit our friends at Cavity Colors. Get 10% off your order with the code VHS Files Podcast. And until next time, be kind.
Rewind!
Yeah. God, you just reminded me of the baby in American Sniper. Have you seen American Sniper?
Oh, I heard of that. I never saw that movie, but I did hear about the fake baby in that. Yeah.
There's a pretty bad scene with a fake baby in that. It's, ooh, but anyway.
Top 4 fake babies in film.
There we go.
Put it on the list. It's funny. My wife and I, Kayla, we hate it when a baby's introduced in a show or a movie. We're just, it's become a thing now. We're like, oh, baby. Like, now these people have this baby they have to take care of. It's like such a nuisance. You have to, like, you know, if it's some kind of survival or action movie, it's like it severely limits what you can do. It can't be quiet, so you can't sneak around because you got this baby. It's like, anytime there's a baby introduced, you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, that
it's like a trope that I'm just sick of.